Hi, Hilary.
Hello.
I'm so glad to see you.
As it were, it's really nice of you to invite me.
Yes,
Nice to talk to you.
yes. You graduated from Oxford, majoring in German and French.
A long time ago, yes. I have um, a BA in French and German, and then I did an MPhil, which is a master's.
Yes,
Um, and yeah, then I sort of got tired of it, and so I stopped.
yes. I learned a little bit German. I don't speak
Mhm.
French, but these languages, they have females and males in the languages correlate with the yin and yang concept.
Yeah, no one's ever asked me that before. It's a really interesting question. I don't think so, no. Because German has a neuter gender as well, so
Uh,
you'd need yin and yang and something else.
yes,
So that would be difficult. And the gender of a noun doesn't often say anything about the thing. It isn't a characteristic of the object.
oh, because living in Texas, I know a little bit Spanish. When they say the
Mm-hmm.
moon, they say la luna. So it gives the moon a female gender,
Yes, that's
which
that's the
is,
that's the same in French.
yeah,
The moon is feminine and the sun is masculine. That's nice.
I Ching, the moon is old yin, also has the character of yin.
Maybe people associate the moon with the feminine
Yes,
in general because of the cycle, and that's just universal.
yes. So I
Mm.
guess what I'm trying to see is that if it's universal when they categorize certain subjects or objects into the female gender and certain things into the male gender, it's pretty universal because in Chinese language we don't have that. But at the same time, we do have this yin and yang concept, whether the earth is female or male, until I started to study the I Ching. In China, when we speak the language, it's all the same. We don't have articles at all.
Yeah, English is the same, of course. So it's not a native idea to me either. Yes, I mean now you come to mention it,
Uh,
Earth is feminine in French and German, and a yin trigram. So yeah, but then there are things like the French for a boat is le bateau, masculine, and
uh,
then the French for a big container ship is la navire, feminine.
uh-huh.
Um, and you could call them both a ship. Quite a lot of it's just random,
Oh, I see.
or I mean, it's not random. No doubt there are long, complicated reasons why, but not necessarily connected to the nature of the thing.
Yes.
Though, yeah, the moon and the sun and the earth. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Mm.
Yes. So how many years have you been a diviner?
Ages. I mean, for myself since the 1990s, and for other people since I started Clarity, and that was in the year 2000.
Oh,
So this is year 22.
yes. So it has been
Mm.
20 some years.
Yeah, it's been a while. Mm.
Yes. Do you also believe in astrology?
I don't know anything about astrology. It's one of those things I feel like I ought to learn about and ought to know about. I have friends who know about it. They seem to find that it goes together with the I Ching very well, that what they learn from one complements what they
Yes.
learn from the other. That's
Yes.
Western astrology in general,
Yes. Yes.
interestingly.
The year 2000, it's a divide between the Pisces time and the current time. I
Mm.
Ching was produced in the Pisces time. The yin and yang circle, it's very much like the symbol of the Pisces. They're
Yes,
both
I
fish.
suppose it's kind of fish shaped.
Yes, two fish,
Yes, I see what you mean.
69, yin and yang. Tell me more about your background.
And it wasn't that long after I left that I found an I Ching book and got interested, and that was that. You mean my family or?
Yeah, your family, and or if you worked after you graduated. I know that you do some volunteer jobs. I learned that you play the cello.
Well, my parents were both teachers. They both taught Latin.
Okay.
Yes, they actually met at a summer school for teachers of Latin. So that's
Okay.
yeah, that's quite something. I'm married, no children. We met at university.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm. The trouble with running your own business, which I do with clarity, is that it's more than a full-time job, so fills all the time you have, and there's always something more you should have done.
Yes.
Yeah, you probably know. I play the cello. I do as much of that as I can, and I do some volunteering. I'm very lucky to have some fantastic volunteering experiences. First with at a day centre for elderly people, and later a local club for survivors of stroke. Wonderful people, many of whom have big problems with their speech, great problems with communication, but they tackle these with tremendous determination and spirit. It's really quite inspiring.
So your husband is also an artist.
He's an author.
Oh, I see.
You can find David Barrett stories about something else
Yes.
on Amazon.
Oh, I see.
Yes. Short stories were quite unlike anything else you will find in the entirety of Amazon, I can promise.
So both of you studied at Oxford and still live nearby?
Actually, until recently, and I may not have updated my website because it's still in the process of moving.
Oh, I see.
Almost certainly somewhere in the north of the country where the houses are a bit cheaper.
How did you discover I Ching?
By accident or by serendipity, I suppose is a better way of putting it. I read a book that mentioned the I Ching as, I didn't say this is an oracle, it will speak to you. It said something like, this is a way to tap into your creativity or some such fluffy thing. And so when I happened to see a copy in a secondhand bookshop, I picked that up. And then I got interested, and then I found another translation, the Ritz-McArcher translation in the library. And I borrowed that, and then I renewed it, and then I renewed it again, and then I renewed it again. And yeah, somewhere along the line, I found that this book that was supposed to be just, to help you be more creative or engage in lateral thinking or some such waffle, was actually an oracle, and it was talking to me. I don't know if you've had that moment. If you've had conversations with the I Ching, when you suddenly realize this, oh, wait, this is a conversation. This is answering my question, and it's asking me questions, and it's talking to me personally. It's quite an extraordinary and kind of a breathtaking experience.
That was in your 20s?
Coming up on 30, yeah.
I see. I see. Like a very crucial moment of your life. You found this book and it's changed your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd finished with university, and honestly, I didn't know what to do with myself. I knew that it wasn't that. And I'd always thought, if I'd thought at all, that I was probably going to spend my life, I was going to stay at university, I was going to be an academic. I found I didn't want to do that, and I didn't know what else I was going to. So yeah, yes, I was very lucky to find it when I did.
Yes. So when you read for people, is I Ching your primary tool?
It's my only tool, yes.
The only tool. Do you consider yourself a psychic?
My first reaction is no. I suppose not more than anybody else.
Yes.
And not less than anybody else either. But I think it's important working with the I Ching to know that it's the oracle that gives the answers.
Yes.
And my contribution is to help interpret, to to be the person who sits in on the conversation and helps the person understand what the oracle is saying, and gives them that experience of having it speak to them. It also means that I can start off by saying, I know I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know what you should do, or what's going to happen with your relationship, or how you should cope with this and this, which is outside my experience. It's not about me, and it's not about how wise or clever or blah, blah I am. It's beyond me, and it comes through me. It's probably that experience of the way it speaks to you. It isn't abstract.
Okay.
It's very, very concrete and direct, and often quite rude or quite funny. You can say, what if I do that? And it will tell you in no uncertain terms that you're being an idiot, and it will tell you what kind of idiot you are being. The key thing, the vital thing for someone like me who works with it in translation, is to find a real translation, so that you don't get abstractions, but instead you have the real, live, concrete imagery of the thing, so that it says, the well doesn't change, and the question is whether you will be able to pull the water from the well, because if your rope is too short or if your bucket is damaged, that's disastrous. And then you get to the specifics where it might say, this well is old and muddy and no birds come to it, or this well is giving clear, cold water to drink. This is all concrete and direct, and you can connect to it. It speaks to you on all levels. You don't just sit there saying, oh, what does this mean? How does this apply? And even if you don't fully understand how it applies, you are still absorbing it, and it's still responding to you, and you're responding to it, and it's working. I can tell you one story from a reading, because I remember delivering a reading and explaining things and being quite pleased with myself for how I'd explained it. And the person telling me that they hadn't really, they contacted me the next day or a few days later and said they hadn't really understood anything I'd said, or they couldn't really remember anything of what I'd said. But it didn't matter, because everything had solved itself. The whole issue had kind of opened out and was sorted. And I think that's the oracle at work, without someone necessarily saying, oh yes, that applies to that, and that applies to that, and this, this all makes good logical sense. So yeah, the importance of getting a real translation is that that's how you get the imagery that says, this is like a well that's old and muddy, or you need to change like a tiger, or this is a mountain, or this is like a mountain, or like a lake on a mountain. Whereas there are a lot of well-meaning people who publish things where it says on the cover it's the I Ching, but then they think, oh, that's all too complicated for people, this imagery. And what the well really means is that there's potential, but it's hard to reach, or something. And so they will write in their book something general and abstract about potential and reaching potential. And sometimes you may have a reading where that applies, and sometimes you'll have a reading where it doesn't. And then when it doesn't, you're lost, because there's no imagery, there's nothing to connect to. There's no sense of being spoken to, and no relationship.
Because different people have different interpretations, especially during the feudal times. Many ancient Chinese scholars use it for the kings and the emperors to teach them how to rule the country. There are many references that are not very direct. There are many possibilities. Lately, I have been studying 35 Number 35, Gua is Jin. Line 4, it talks about rats. So I did some research and historical research. I found out that, this Gua talks about getting promotion. One of the sons of King Wen got promoted.
Yes.
He's Kang.
That's right. Yes,
yeah.
He was rewarded.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was rewarded because he helped his brother Dan. There was a rebellion of 3 brothers in their family, along with the son of King Zhou. So I realized rats means traitor.
Yes.
Someone betrayed the Zhou dynasty. So that means the brothers, the bad brothers, they were the rats.
That's a good thought.
They were in line 4, So that like a line 5 means emperors and kings. So line 4 means the ruler of smaller countries nearby or just under them, the protection.
It's like traditionally it says line 4 means the ministers, the ones who are supposed to be helping the king at the court.
Yes, or they say
meant to be a support to the king.
Wang Hou Jiang Xiang, they say 4 words. So Wang means the brothers or the families of the emperor. They're the kings or small kings, and generals and ministers, 4 groups of people. Because my aunt is also a scholar on I Ching. So we exchanged notes, and I read her book that published in 1993. And her translation of line 4 was like they were using rats for divination near the river of Jin. So I did some research and find out that, there were traditions of rats divination. Even in the book Harry Potter, Monophenny, something using rat to predict.
The idea that the rats were used for divination, that's really interesting.
I'm
generally taking omens from the behaviors of animals, that I can imagine. Yes.
Myomancy.
Something mancy, obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then rats being a traitor, and all these things are universal. Maybe they use the rats divination, and then they find out there are rats in the family, or the rats are referred to those people fault, but they were not very capable. This type of rats have 5 abilities, but they're not very good at it.
Yes. And a lot of the interpretation of that one, it depends which rodent you think it's about, doesn't it?
Yes.
If you think if it's the 5 skilled rodents, then it's the one where it said it can swim but not like a fish, and it can run but not like a horse. Or I forget the quotation, but yeah.
Yes.
I've certainly seen it mean that. How and the English expression would be jack of all trades and master of none, but something very like the 5 skilled rodent. It means someone who will turn their hand to everything, but they're not very good at any of it. I've had that myself because I have a bad habit of trying to do everything for my business. So I try to, do the marketing and make the pictures and build the website and I can sort of, sort of do all these things, but I'm not very good at them. And so it takes a very long time and it doesn't get done very well. It's an interesting line, that one, because it doesn't say it's a big disaster. It just says that constancy is dangerous.
Disaster.
And it's still a kind of advancing. It's advancing like this rodent.
So it's a big controversial about line 1. They say it's about promotion and advancing too fast. Sometimes they translate it into the river. In the Ma Wang Dui's book, advancing, that word has like water in it. My aunt's translation is the water is being cleaned up. So
this is still in Hexagram 35.
Yes, many people use that too. Jin River was cleaned up. The life became good because of the river cleanup. When you look at the river, the water going downward, you feel sad. That's one translation, you know.
This is Jin, the name of the river, and then she reads the whole thing as talking about the river.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have different interpretation. And I think the first line means he got promoted too fast. I never read anything in English, so I'm just telling you what I believe. It's like he doesn't gain enough trust from other people.
Your aunt's book sounds really interesting. Is it only
Yeah,
available
his
in
book
Chinese?
is very
Is it
interesting.
only available in Chinese?
Yes, only
Oh.
available in
Oh, what a
Chinese. And
shame.
she's from a shamanism. She has like a Manchurian and Mongolian blood in her. Her family was the royal Manchurian last name. She used a lot of instincts. She said she wrote the book because at that time in 1990s, China was very popular with Qigong, Tai Chi, lots of people. So they have this collective unconsciousness. People went hypnotic and wild. Many of her inspiration were discovered at that time, and she felt there's some messages delivered to her, or her brain was already downloaded with some knowledge of the I Ching. At that time, there was not much research books. So she just wrote stream of conscious, this type of writing. Now we do our Chinese podcast. She teaches me I Ching. We go back and forth. It's about this river because there's poetry in Chinese culture that when the river is flowing downward, the king feels so sad. The word sad is made of a heart and autumn. She says in summertime, there's this flood. So they have to clean up the canal of the river. Then autumn time, the river flows really good, but he feels sad because he gets all the promotion because his mother, his mother, at the time his brother's really young, hasn't got his land. Most of other brothers already got their land. He hasn't got his land, but because his mother, he got the land, so he feels he's not confident enough. So he feels sad. Oh, what am I going to do? Nobody is going to trust me. To line 3 is the crowd agreed. Crowd agreed with the promotion, with the advancement. Line 4 is like these rats. My ancestors, because the flood, many rats died. So they use rats for divination.